Time to abandon ship.
Oh no!
Here we go!
Can I persuade you to join us for a drink? It's a tradition.
Here, here.
Jar Jar, homie, my main man, quickly. Before the Separatists attack, get into the escape pod.
Hey! If this is escape, then we're the pod. Use the
Hey everyone, and welcome to the first official episode of Star Wars Escape Pod. We're going to be getting into Vader Immortal Episode 1. It's a VR experience available for Oculus Quest and Rift S. I actually emulated it on my HTC Vive. There is a way to do that, and it's been months since it came out. I've been dying to play it, finally got it figured out. I actually explained that to my co-host today. His name is Reid. We got to get to the surface of Tatooine here to meet him in the cantina, so we're going to be chatting with him about that once we get down there. So let's go.
Another happy landing.
Oh, there he is right there. Hey man, thanks for coming on Star Wars Escape Pod. It's great to have you.
Right on.
Let's jump into it just because we don't have a whole lot of time here. But have you done Star Wars VR before?
I think this is my first official Star Wars VR experience. Well, I do remember the one time that you set me up with that Star Wars VR experience, but I think that was I think you said that was like a beta or something like that. I don't know. So this is probably like my first like solid like what was that 45 minutes of Star Wars.
Yeah, 45 minutes roughly. So it's like between 45 minutes to an hour depending on how much you like look around and stuff like that. But you know, you actually grip the controls pretty well. Like for someone who's like never done Star Wars VR, like it's a bit of a hack because for those of you who are listening, I own an HTC Vive, and this game has been available for a couple months now. It was released exclusively on Oculus Quest, and I've been like itching to play it ever since it's come out. So, Vader Immortal Episode 1, you're in the headset, logo comes up, you hear ominous music, you hear Darth Vader breathing. You kind of know it's on, from the get-go.
So good, yeah.
Yeah, so you kind of like, it fades in, and you're in a ship, you're a smuggler. Your hands are gloved, and you have a co-pilot droid sitting like not too far away from you on the right, and her name is Zio E3. Mm-hmm. And the Hutts want their spice back, and you have to escape. So you jump to hyperspace, flick a couple switches, and you have some time to look around the ship. And then you do some scans and check out the ship damage because there was a bunch of ships like that were firing on your ship before you jumped into hyperspace. And anyway, so like when you were looking around the ship and like the first couple times you had to flip switches, like
it totally psyched me out because I didn't realize they would throw me like give me that kind of control with so little direction right away, like, and I really liked it that it was just kind of like the what's her name, Zio or whatever, like
Zio E3.
Yeah, Zio E3 just kind of like said like, oh, you need to like hit this thing, and I'm like looking around like because I'm not familiar with whatever spaceship this is, and so I'm like, what button do I like, what do I do? And then I like how they did the controls too, like how you actually have to like reach forward and like push a button, or like grab onto a handle and like activate the handle and stuff like that, and push more buttons, or like I think the first thing you do is like flick a bunch of switches or something like that. Like that was really cool. Like it took me a second to kind of orientate myself and realize that I could interact with the stuff around me, and it wasn't just like, you know, like an environment or whatever. Like it wasn't just like an inanimate environment that I was in. Like you can interact with it. Like that was pretty cool.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's kind of weird like when you first start out because especially on the Vive controls because it is emulated, so the buttons aren't mapped out to the way they're supposed to be for the game. So you know when you start figuring out how to get your finger in the right position to like flick those switches on, then you know once you get that figured out, then it's like, oh, I can like point and you know press things and flick things up and grab things, because you have to pull a lever to put yourself into hyperspace. And
like I think being like getting thrown right into combat and being given like no tutorial like really puts the pressure on you to figure all that stuff out really, really quick. I mean, I like almost never play like VR, so but I picked it up pretty quick. Okay, I was like, yep, push this, do this, let's do it, let's go.
And that's that's great to know for people who like have never played it before. But I think the intention with like, because I didn't even like tell you what to do most of the time, I just kind of left it up to you to figure it out, and I think that's most of the fun, because it plops you into this story, like it puts you in this position for the first time ever, like as a user or as a viewer, I guess. You get to experience Star Wars like first person. Like it's the only time ever where you get like this real story that's happening and involves you. You get soaked into it. It sucks you in. And like most of the films, like you kind of put in the place for the first time of like, okay, what do I do next, right? It's just a minimal amount. Like it's very structured to the sense that it like drags you along. Well,
it reminded me a lot of like now that I think about it, it really reminds me of those like Telltale games and stuff like that. Like
for sure.
The like The Walking Dead or something like that, for example. And I didn't play those games a ton, but I kind of like understood the theme of it. It's like this Vader Immortal was like a way more interactive and like immersive experience than that, because like in a lot of those games, right, you're like just going around like doing like talking to people and stuff like that, and so you're picking your next thing in dialogue and that kind of thing. Whereas with this one, like you're like, you have to push the buttons, you gotta like or like deflect the shot, like the lasers and stuff like that. Like you're doing stuff rather than just like watching some character do it and that kind of thing. Like that was really cool.
So let's see, where are we? So eventually, after some exploring the ship, I noticed that you didn't really pick anything up like off the shelf or anything like that. But when I did it,
I didn't see it. I didn't even realize right away. I think it was just slightly because I was still figuring out the movement a little bit, because the movement on the touchpad, like I didn't realize it was just touch. I didn't have to click a button, so like I struggled with that for a little bit, but. What did you do when you got to interact with that stuff?
Well, I found this Rebel, or I think it was a Rebel helmet. It was like an X-wing pilot helmet.
Okay,
almost. And you can actually put it on.
What?
So
That's sick.
when AJ played the game, he actually put it on and left it on for as long as he could. So
that's awesome.
It's pretty cool. It kind of obstructs your view because it kind of makes you feel like you are wearing the helmet, so it doesn't just disappear if you put it on. You do get like a cropped field of view, and it gives you the sense that you're wearing this helmet. So
that's pretty cool.
Yeah, so it's kind of cool. There was like a model of your ship in there. There's like some weird,
I saw that.
There's some weird looking things on the shelf. Like
I noticed all those like weird artifacts and stuff like that.
Like
I noticed the model.
Yeah.
Like I didn't realize I could like interact with them or whatever. But that was it was like cool that there was all that stuff.
It's stuff, and it's like it gives you the sense that you're not only just like your average smuggler, but it gives you the sense that you've been in some places where you've done some possible archaeology, I guess. It gives you the sense that you've dug up some things over the years. You've come across some cool treasures of some kind. So so that was really interesting. It gives you and your character a lot of history. That's the one thing about this game that really or I get this experience or whatever you want to call it. That's one thing that I noticed really clearly, is that it gives you a backstory. Even before you start playing, kind of thing. So when you pick up the controls and you're in that story, you really get soaked into the experience of being like, whoa, I've got this history to my character, and it's me. It's not somebody else, it's me. Because
I was interested in learning more about my character or whatever. It wasn't just some you're just like some nameless being or whatever that's just happens to have all this stuff. There's a backstory to it, which is really cool.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So you're in hyperspace and you get yanked out of hyperspace, and you're in the cockpit at this point, and you're kind of you have a very large field of view. There's a lot of open windows, which is cool. And you look above your ship, and it's really reminiscent of the iconic scene from A New Hope, right?
100%.
You get the Star Destroyer just hovering right above your ship just pulling into view, right?
Oh yeah, the nostalgia like throttle was like at full like crank the whole time. I was like, this is so cool, because like I think what I loved about it too is like I've played some of those like more like space-esque like RPG type games, kind of like where you can like you can interact with the inside of your ship and stuff like that. You can walk around it, whatever, that kind of thing. But it was just so cool to be like at that level of immersion where like where you look is like, you're not moving like a stick around to look around. It's like where I'm looking, and so like you're looking up at this awesome ship, or like these fighters are coming in and you're like, whoa, where are they? Or it's like what's going on right now. Like it's so cool.
It's really good. It really like pulls you in at that moment. You're like, oh, I'm in Star Wars. Like you look up, you see the Star Destroyer, and it's a Star Destroyer interdictor. So do you know what an interdictor is by any chance, the model? Did you watch
No.
Star Wars Rebels?
No, I never watched any of the Star Wars Rebels.
So the Star Destroyer interdictor is, I think it was introduced in season 2 Star Wars Rebels episode 9. And it was a Star Destroyer with almost like a specialized purpose. It's got these bubbles on it. And
I noticed that right away.
They're all like I think they work magnetically, but they're basically, they create a field which pulls ships out of hyperspace. So it's one of the only ships that really does that in Imperial history, I think, and it was introduced in that show. So you get the feeling that right away, and I believe Star Wars Rebels season 2 takes place like 3 or 4 years before episode 4. Okay. So you kind of get the sense of like when this takes place. Unless the Star Destroyer interdictor was perhaps like built before we see it in Rebels. I would imagine it is, because it's a big ship, but you get the sense that it's like, okay, I'm in this area of time kind of thing. I could kind of
tell like right away, like I knew it was like a different variant of the Star Destroyer or whatever, and like it had, because like the base, like the legit like Star Destroyers that you see in like episode 4 and stuff like that are a lot more, I mean, they're still a triangle, but they're more streamlined, if that makes sense. Like I could see like the elements, because like from some of the other like older Star Wars games I played and stuff like that, like the Star Destroyers, like the variants leading up to the kind of iconic Star Destroyer, they have like bits and pieces sticking out, like their hull isn't as streamlined in some places, so like there's the big orbs or like bubbles almost sticking out on the bottom of the hull, or there's like some panels and fins and stuff like that sticking out from the bottom, just like extra stuff that I don't know, I noticed that, but it was cool.
So off the bat, you notice that there's something unique about this ship. So it pulls you out of hyperspace, kind of suspicious. And did you instantly recognize that you were above Mustafar, or did it take a moment?
I think it took me a second, just because, like, I guess the last time I saw Mustafar was like from like a view from space was episode 3, Revenge of the Sith. And I thought I remembered it having like a darker like not like ambience,
more clouds
but
and stuff.
It was just like it had a darker look to it. I mean, granted, we were a lot, like from what I remember, like we were we're right in orbit above the planet. Like you're a lot closer to it than you ever were like
in that shot,
in those shots and stuff like that. But like once you break, well, I guess they tell you you're above Mustafar, but then I mean they really didn't need to, because once you break that cloud cover and you come up to the big like monolith or whatever it is, like Darth Vader's like lair kind of, you're kind of like, okay, this is cool.
You see all the lava rivers and everything. So you're hovering above Mustafar, and Admiral Carius just comes on your TV port. Actually, it's worth mentioning the whole game is kind of dark. It would be it would be nice if they for the next one or updated the existing one to like be a little brighter. But so it took me a while when I played it to actually notice that there was a TV display above where your droid is, and he's like on the TV there. But at first I thought it was just over the intercom, and this guy named Admiral Carius kind of introduces himself and says something about how he's gonna they're going to take you down, and
yeah.
So TIE fighters escort you to Vader's castle. So you, as you said, like, you break through the atmosphere a bit, and you get that atmospheric breaking through effect over the windshield, which is cool.
Re-entry,
and re-entry effect, and then you get pulled into this like massive hangar, and you see like all those stormtroopers just like all over the place. Like,
dude,
waiting
it was
for
so
you.
cool, like, because that, like, a little bit of nostalgia from that too, because that's like kind of the iconic scene almost from like episode 4 when the Millennium Falcon gets sucked in onto the Death Star, or even like the Tantive 4 right at the start of the movie gets sucked into the Star Destroyer. But that was just so cool because it's like you're experiencing it. It's not, you're not watching some other character do it like from a distance and stuff like that. You're there, you're in the cockpit, and you get to like watch these guys, and they're pointing their guns right at you. Yeah. So it's like oh, okay, like stuff is going down. Like it's awesome. Like how you're so focal to everything that's going on. Like, it's pretty awesome.
Yeah, and they're trying to get into your ship too, because like as soon as you as soon as you land, your droid kind of goes over to the door, and this computer terminal pops out. You got to scan your palm print on the screen. Yeah, it
took me a second to realize that, because I'm watching the droid. I'm like, dumb droid, open up the stupid door. What are you standing there? Like, what are you fiddling around with? And then I look over at the panel. I was like,
you want to
I can
open the door.
I was like, well, you saw me, right? I was like, I surrendered. I give up.
Yeah.
I was like, and like it took me a second to like move over there, and then I was like, oh yeah, and then I do the palm panel, and then they blast it through the door.
Yeah. So you scan your palm print to lock the door, and they essentially force override the door, and you see the buzzing effect around the edge, and the whole thing just explodes open. And stormtroopers burst in, and for the first time in the game, you get to see a full stormtrooper in reflective armor and everything, like walking right in front of you, sort of thing. Mm-hmm, so that's like your first initial experience of like seeing that. Like, was it like? It was kind of like a jaw-dropping moment,
cool.
Or like,
dude, it was just awesome. Like obviously, like it's a stormtrooper, so nostalgia throttle like is at full. But it was just like awesome that, because it's just such an immersive experience already, and that like the fact that the stormtroopers like are coming up to you like, and like, I guess you didn't get to do like a whole lot of like physical interaction with them, but it was still awesome that like you're like the focal point is you, and you're not like, again, you're not watching some other character experience this or whatever. It's you're the one that's like in the literally like the pilot seat, like you're the one experiencing it. Like it was awesome.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. So they stun your droid, who's quite the chatterbox. She talks a little bit too much, and she's a bit witty, but
just a little bit.
And some of the things she says is all right. It's kind of funny, but anyway, they shut her up pretty quick, and Admiral Carius like walks into your ship, and he's like a cyborg looking guy, and he basically walks right up to you, and
dude, I was like, at first I was like, am I standing close to the edge of the interaction thing for the VR? And then I was like, no, this dude is legit up in my grill right now.
Yeah.
Like I was amazed how like close he got, and the stormtroopers as well, like how close they got to you to like interact with you. Like those gun, like the blasters are right in your grill, and that dude was like in my face.
Oh yeah. I tried to pick his nose when he was standing there.
Of course, like why would he? The second time around when you interact with him or whatever, I remember I just like put my face right back in his, and I was like, if only I could say something to you.
Yeah, exactly. So they stun you as well.
Yeah.
After they have a short conversation, and you wake up in this interrogation room. And did you look behind you at any point? Because behind you, if you look, I don't
think so.
I don't think you did. Yeah,
no.
Behind you, there was actually an interrogation like table, like the kind of thing that you get strapped to.
Oh yeah, I definitely didn't notice that.
Yeah, so it looked very reminiscent of. It showed up in Rebels before, and I don't believe it was in. Maybe if it was in Clone Wars, then I can't remember. But it was very similar to the table that shows up in The Force Awakens. When Poe is strapped to the table, and Kylo Ren is getting the memories out of his brain. So it looked very reminiscent of that. If you look behind you, it's
Okay.
like, okay, that's an elevated torture table right
in
there.
the moment, like again, like so immersive. Like I was more so focused on the medical droid or whatever, or the interrogation droid, right up in my grill, and I was like, bro, like no needles today, man. I'll tell you what you want to know.
Yeah, exactly.
I give up.
So Admiral Carius is in the room with you, and he explains that he's going to give that Vader is going to give you a task to fulfill, and that you're not the first to try. And he's basically like, this admiral is like convinced that you're going to fail, and you're just going to be like one of many other people who have done this task before and failed and died trying, right?
Exactly.
So immediately you're like, okay, I got to impress Lord Vader with something I have no idea how to do.
No.
Because not only was it like a first experience in VR for you, but
I was like, when it comes to the moment that Vader gives you that little box or whatever to interact with, I was like, oh, is this like a puzzle thing, like a Rubik's Cube? I'm just kind of poking in and slapping at it literally with my hands. Like I tried to interact with it at first, but it didn't like work the way I thought it would. Like, like I would grab the Rubik's Cube and twist it around. And so I like just started poking at it, and that worked.
Yeah.
And it started unfolding. So I was just like, here you go, Vader. Like, I did things to this. Look at what I did.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh yeah, that's what I wanted. I was like, sweet.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and then the moment that Vader actually walks in the room too, because like after the Admiral explains that Vader's going to give you a task to do, the door kind of opens up, and Vader kind of from a distance just starts walking towards you. And I don't know about you, but immediately the reaction I had was like, he's big. Like,
dude,
he was I was like, when he opened the door, I was like, yes, okay, this is it. I get to see Vader like in person. Yeah. And then as he walks towards you and comes right up to you, you start to realize how tall Vader is. Like I know on paper it kind of says, 7 foot tall, and on the movies and stuff, like when you see him next to somebody else, he is tall. Like he's a tall dude, but you don't really feel the intimidating kind of feeling that you feel when he's right there. Like you're looking up at him.
Yeah, dude. Like when the moment that like door opened, like I don't know if you noticed, but I legit like threw my arms up just by pure impulse. Like I didn't even think about it, and I was literally like, I give up, man.
Like, oh shoot,
I surrender. Like, dude, like don't kill me. I'll tell, like, do whatever you want.
Yeah,
like it was. Yeah, they did such a good job with like, because he gets like right up in your grill too, and so you really appreciate like the menacing, like awe-inspiring like figure of Vader for sure. It was so cool, man.
Yeah. And then he gives you this box, and you have to open it. You have no idea what you're doing, but it opens anyway. And he calls it a configuration. He says, Vader, he gives you this thing, and he says, open this configuration, and I will spare your life. So he says that, and as you're kind of like toying around with it, a crystal juts out of the box.
Yeah. And
it's kind of glowing, and it does a bunch of weird stuff. And I thought it kind of looked like a Jedi holocron, but it's not a holocron. It's something else, obviously. But it kind of reminded me of the holocron, because in a Jedi holocron, there's a crystal inside it.
Oh, okay.
Usually. So at least the one that I saw in the Clone Wars, there was a holocron that held the crystal inside it. So holocrons are essentially like flash drives in Star Wars. Like they basically hold memories, and they hold recordings, they hold things. So it was reminiscent of that, but I don't think it was a holocron. But whatever the case, he calls it a configuration, and this crystal juts out, and as soon as he does that, Vader like force grabs it from you, and he says, "This is the one I've been searching for." And then Vader kind of walks away, and he says that he's going to send for you shortly. And they all leave the room. Him and the Admiral leave the room, and a prisoner who refers to himself as the Lore Master grabs your attention from the corner of the room, who's like behind a cell wall. And like for me, I was surprised. I was like, oh, I didn't even notice you.
No, like my like, sole focus was like doing whatever it took to survive Vader. I was like, dude, like I'll twist your Rubik's Cube, like I'll do what you want, man. And then the guy starts talking to you. I was like, oh, there's people in here. Okay.
Yeah, it's not just you. Yeah. And then you also notice that your droid is behind another cell. So you're one of 3 people in the room now, and the prisoner grabs your attention and says, Vader's been looking for someone in your bloodline. So instantly you get the feeling like, oh, I'm of some significance here. Obviously, like, they wouldn't have torn me out of hyperspace for nothing. And now I get the feeling that, okay, I just opened some sort of weird magic box, and now like I'm supposed to be some sort of like special person in some sort of bloodline, right? So he explains that you're the one that Vader's been looking for, and the prisoner just happens to know this. I don't know how. The prisoner happens to know that Vader has a wish to conquer death, which I think all of us already are aware of, because it's kind of what brought Anakin to the dark side in the first place, is mastery over death. So it's a really like core element of his character to be still obsessed with it. Exactly. He's obsessed with it, and it's interesting that the title Vader Immortal has in that very like subject right there is just Vader Immortal. It's like he wants to learn how to master death, and not necessarily for himself, because later on, which we'll eventually get to, we find out why he's wanting to know mastery over death. But spoiler alert, if you've seen Revenge of the Sith, you might have some idea. So he this prisoner that you see in the cell helps you escape, because he gives you a hydro spanner, which it's kind of indicated he's been hiding in a very...
we don't have R2-D2 sticks, so put the stick in the wall.
Exactly, yeah. It's kind of like, it reminds me of like one of those screwdrivers that has the little... what do you call those things? It's like a little
socket wrench?
Yeah, socket wrench. Yeah, it kind of reminds me of that. So it looks a little bit like that. So it takes you a few seconds to kind of figure out how to put it in the wall. And then once you so you were kind of like shoving it in and nothing was happening. So once you get it lined up properly, it kind of like starts spinning dials and everything, which is kind of cool. And then you realize like, oh, I gotta like rip stuff out. And so you're basically tearing apart this lock, which eventually... once you figure it out, releases the prisoners, which is your droid and this other random guy, who looks like a native of Mustafar. He's like a native to the planet, his species, I think it's Mustafarian is the name of his species.
Yeah, something like that, I guess.
Yeah, and so we know 3 things. He's Mustafarian, he's the lore master of his clan, and now he's
Cavern Clan or whatever. Yeah,
something like that. Yeah, and he's and now he's helping you escape, and he knows a few motives that Vader has, and your droid kind of like mimics the Admiral's voice and helps you get out of the interrogation room, and you make your way down a few hallways, and you have to open up another door to the elevator, and then as soon as the elevator door opens, like, what do you see? Like, just like a stormtrooper standing like right there, and this prisoner and your droid like takes it out for you, and you're like, do I help?
Like that. So like that whole sequence though was really cool, because like, of all the Star Wars video games I've played and stuff like that, like with Star Wars Battlefront, for example, love that franchise, but you never get to like actually really interact with your environment. Whereas like with that, like just like when you're you stick the thing into the electronic keyhole type thing, and then like you're ripping parts out, like that was just cool, because like you see that in the movies and stuff like that, like they're tearing stuff around or like sticking stuff into the electronic locks. And it was cool that you get to interact with it, because it's just, again, it's like just such a cool like immersive little experience. It's not just like, you're not just like a floating camera and there's just like walls around you and like a completely like an environment that you can't like touch and interact with and stuff like that.
Absolutely. So the next part is when you get into the elevator, you see instantly through the viewport of the elevator, you see your ship hanging up in the hangar. It's like, it's in there, and
it's surrounded by stormtroopers. You're like, okay, this is what are we gonna do right now?
It kind of reminds you of that. Again, it's another New Hope vibe where you look out where they look out the window.
From the whatever the control room, the control security room, or
and they see the
Millennium
Falcon, and it's kind of in a very unfortunate place of being in just an Imperial hangar, right?
Literally,
so,
the worst possible place to be in the galaxy.
Yeah, and like, what do you see from the ceiling? Like a couple TIE fighters and Vader Starfighter. Like,
yeah, exactly.
You know,
and then beyond that, like the Mustafar itself and stuff like that, which was like just so cool.
Yeah, so it's a cool view out the window, and then you after taking down the few stormtroopers that are in there, which essentially the prisoner and the droid do it for you.
Yeah.
An announcement comes on at the intercom, and this Admiral Carey's person has noticed that you've escaped the cell. So it gives you the idea. It's like, oh, that was only like 2 hallways ago. Like they must have just walked into the interrogation room and realized that I'm gone, kind of thing. So so I guess I got the feeling that they're right behind us, kind of thing.
Right.
So they're on your tail. And the prisoner you helped escape tells you to go down to the lower catacombs and meet some priestess of his clan.
Yeah.
And he gives you what he calls a totem. It's like a glowing little...
Yeah,
what does it look like again? Is like some...
A smaller Rubik's Cube?
A smaller Rubik's Cube. Yeah, something glowing. He gives it to your droid.
Yeah.
And he goes off to cause a distraction. He kind of stole off one of the E11s from the stormtroopers, and he... goes out the other elevator door and causes a ruckus.
Sacrifices himself so that you can do this or whatever.
So you can get away.
Amulet. That's probably a good word for the little thing that he...
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, so he goes off to cause a distraction, and the elevator doors shut and turns on, and you start moving. Mm-hmm. And then it comes to a halt, and you have to kind of break out. So you're toying around with another lock, which has to release this ladder from the ceiling, which you have to get out. And I got kind of an Anakin Obi-Wan elevator moment vibe from that.
100%. Yeah. I was like, oh, sick. Like, you're messing around with the controls and stuff like that, and then like ladders. I was like, oh yeah, let's do that. Like fingers crossed there's no like droids or whatever up there, but
activate
awesome.
Elevator 3224.
Yeah, exactly.
2.
Exactly. 100%.
No R2 in this game. So
no, unfortunately no. Our droid is like mostly just good at telling us how much our situation sucks rather than doing anything about it.
Useless robot.
Useless robot.
So there's Revenge of the Sith vibes all over this game.
So much,
it starts you off with some A New Hope vibes, and then it very quickly escalates to a very prequel content setting environment. Not only are you on Mustafar, in Vader's house, but like you're in Vader's castle, but now you're trying to get out of this interrogation situation, and instantly you're like, okay, like Revenge of the Sith moment right here, and it kind of goes deeper as the game goes along. And so you climb up this ladder, which takes you to an elevator shaft, which you kind of like have to get up a few more ladders and around the corner. So there's a bit of an escapee sort of situation going on.
That was really cool.
You eventually enter this large room. This is like kind of like one of the bigger moments where you enter this large room and there's just a pedestal in the middle of the room.
So the moment we went in that room, all I could think of was Admiral Akbar going over my shoulder. It's a trap. That's
It looks like a trap. Like
I was like, why am I doing this? Like really? Like, come on. It's all right. I'll grab this thing, and I was like, oh man, I got the lightsaber. Who's gonna ambush me now? And then it's a training sequence. So I was like, oh, okay, sure, why not?
Yeah, and you get a lightsaber, and then you turn it on, and it's a green lightsaber blade. That doesn't change for anybody. But let's see. Once you activate the lightsaber, this training droid just pops out of nowhere and starts attacking you. What I noticed, which was interesting, is like when I played the game, I tore that thing to shreds, and then the game just kind of progressed. Whereas like it got a few hits on you when you played the game, and it started this training sequence of like how to use a lightsaber in combat. That is.
Like I think I mean I know I have to like deflected some of the things or whatever, but I didn't like aggressively like counterattack it or anything like that as well. I just kind of like waited to see what it would do, because I was like, okay, what's this thing trying to do? Is it trying to kill me? Is it trying to train me? And lo and behold, it's like, hey, let's train you. And you got a whole cool sequence, and then eventually it progresses to the little episode 4 laser training orbs or whatever, and they're shooting lasers, and you learn like some basic game mechanics and stuff like that. I was like, oh, sick, this is awesome.
Yeah, it's super cool. at least for me, like some people have played. It was an ILM X Labs VR experiment sort of thing. It was called Trials in Tatooine, and it was a little thing where you were on Tatooine and you had to fix the Millennium Falcon who had taken some damage, and you had to push a couple buttons to fix like some component in the ship, and Han Solo's like guiding you over the intercom, and then eventually R2 kind of rolls down and gives you a lightsaber, and then stormtroopers show up and you deflect the bullet. So it was kind of like a similar moment, I guess, with the orbs, that is, where you're deflecting the bullets, although it felt way more accurate. Like the mechanics of deflecting these blaster bolts was like way more dead on. And if you didn't know, it's like I noticed sometimes when you reached up to defend a strike, even it wasn't completely far enough away from your body that it actually blocked the strike. Like, he still got the hit on you.
So like, you would come
really
close, but you didn't. If you didn't quite do it, then like you'd still get hit. And like later on, like when you fight the stormtroopers and stuff like that, and you experience like deflecting laser bolts again, I was like surprised how much more like detail there was to it, because it actually matters what direction you're holding the lightsaber, what angle and stuff like that. Like it was so cool. Yeah, super cool. So it's way more accurate than the likes of like Star Wars Kinect. Did you ever play Star Wars Kinect? I've never played Star Wars Kinect.
Okay,
no.
it's a good time, but it was a failure of a game, by far. There was a very famous Star Wars dancing mode in there, which one of the songs, I've actually used one of the songs as the little kind of intro song to this podcast. It was the Han Solo song. So that song originated from, it was like it's an alteration of like a real life song. I forget what the real version is called, but it's just a funny little thing. But that came out of Star Wars Kinect. And the lightsaber combat in Star Wars Kinect is very, very simple, because you're not holding anything that's being tracked. It's literally the camera tracking your arm motion. And when you're defending something that has a blade, it's like, you have to like hold your arm out to the far right to block a hit coming in from the right side, and then it's the far left, and it gives you enough time, like it pauses to kind of like have you react to deflect the shot in time. And if you increase the difficulty of the game, it just kind of shortened that time. But with this VR experience, like right away, it starts hammering hits on you, this training droid, and you're like, whoa, like, instantly, like by instinct, just trying to move your blade to like defend in the right position. Because like they would give you pauses and stuff like that, but it wouldn't just be like standing there, like kind of mechanically hold the lightsaber back for like however many seconds and then like swing it from that direction. Like there would be some like it's like flipping it around or like moving it and stuff like that. So you're trying to like I'm watching this lightsaber like a hawk. I'm like, okay, he's got it like to his upper right, but is he even gonna come down from that angle? Like maybe he's gonna like whip it around from below or like angle it from the left or something like that. Like it was like I had to think about where I was gonna like try to block with my strike or whatever. Anticipate the hits.
And like as you go, like once you start picking it up, like you can actually move like pretty quickly. I mean, I don't know anything about fencing or whatever, but I was like, oh, this is awesome. Like I actually have to make an effort to defend myself right now.
So once you finish off the training droid, your droid opens up this like the walls of the room, basically.
Like the whatever outer shield panels and stuff like that.
And you get this like really cool view of Mustafar.
That was so cool.
Mountainside and like a bunch of the lava rivers like far off in the distance and stuff like that.
Because at that point in the game you are like kind of most of the environments that you're in are like very enclosed, like super dark too. So it's cool that they kind of like opened up so you can like see the world and like the planet around you and that kind of thing.
So you it has you basically like climb along outside of the fortress even higher up, so you have to like it was super cool, because at first I was like, oh, it's gonna be like that ladder thing, like I'm just gonna have to climb straight up, but you had to like think about where you were going and what you were grabbing onto and stuff like that. It's like whoa, I have to like reach for this
over there.
Yeah.
Like I think at one point I was like, yo, Josh, am I gonna hit the computer monitor or something? Like,
well, and I've never played a climbing game in VR before. I know there's a few out there, but like it was really good. Like
yeah,
the way that the climbing
I
works.
never even knew that there was someone had thought of climbing games in VR. Thought of climbing games in VR, and so I was like, oh, this is so cool that like they thought to put this in the game.
Yeah.
Because again, that's like a perfect like Star Wars thing, because it gives you the chance, because like there's no other Star Wars game where you get to interact with the environment like that.
Yeah.
Like I mean, maybe like some of like not Force Awakens. What's that Star Wars game or whatever? Force Unleashed.
Oh yeah, Force Unleashed. Yeah.
Like you're like watching some other character, do like the force jumps and like climb or scale whatever objects and stuff like that. But it's like it's you grabbing on to those things. Like, man, I was like pushing those buttons down hard. Like I was like slowly inching along, making sure I had a solid grip on those things or whatever. It was so cool.
Yeah, because you don't want to fall, right?
No, yeah.
So you get to the top and you get to a maintenance like doorway almost, a maintenance hatch of some kind, which you make your way down this maintenance walkway, and it's just like pipes and everything.
Yeah.
And you have to actually slice your way through a pipe now that you have a lightsaber.
Yeah, it took me a second to remember because like it doesn't really like hold your hand or give you like a ton of hints or anything like that. So you kind of like, it didn't take me very long to figure it out.
Yeah.
But I was like, oh, like, okay, like this is kind of cool. Like it's making me like use the tools that it gives me to like interact and progress through this environment and stuff like that. Cause like, yeah, you cut through the smaller piping and stuff like that. And then you come to a bigger one. It's like, I was like, oh man, how am I going to deal with this one? And then like you kind of realize like, oh, you can slowly like do that heat thing with the lightsaber where you cut your way through it like a bit slower. And yeah, it was awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, and this is like I think the most interesting part of the game too, because like once you get through that walkway, you quickly realize like you hear voices, and you get to this section where you're looking through this ventilation shaft like down into this other room. Yeah. So you're kind of on this upper floor and you're kind of looking down into this other room, and like what did you see at first when you started looking through these vents?
I saw Vader, and then I don't know if it was like some hooded figure or something like. At first, I thought it was Snoke.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I thought the exact same thing. That you hear this voice that sounds very close to Snoke's voice.
Oh yeah. And so I was like, I was trying to like look around, and that's what was so cool about a VR experience, is that you can like angle yourself, because we're looking through the grate or whatever, and you're like I'm like trying to peek closer and like it's like get a different angle. Because like he moves around, and then his head's blocked by the grate, like, and so like you're moving around looking and trying to figure out what's going on, like see what they're interacting with. I'm like, what's this big gold glowy stuff down there, or like what's this big like later you see the triangle, whatever little pyramid thing. I was like, what is this thing, what's going on? and that's exactly it. Like it's this yellow glowing boulder.
Yeah. So it's a yellow glowing boulder, there's Vader, and there's this like cloaked being. I think it had a bit of like a purplish tinge to his cloak or something, but and I thought it was Snoke as well, but I don't know if it is Snoke.
No, because it was cloaked. So I was looking at it, I was like, I don't know, is that a Snoke thing to do? Like, what is it? Is he like ugly right now? Is he like not yet ugly? Like, what's going on right now?
Really interesting. And there's not a whole lot revealed about Snoke's past so far, so
exactly.
I was wondering. I was like, "Oh, is this like, part of his backstory?" Like, I was really taken aback by. I was like, "This is really cool." Like, if it is, and I was like so zoned in on the conversation that they were having. Yeah. And it's brought up. I think it was Vader or something. He says he talks about Lady Korvax, and that he found the one who was able to open the key. So now you know that little box thing is like some sort of key, and now you know that you're very possibly related to some person named Lady Korvax. Like you're a part of her bloodline. So it's brought up by the hooded figure, I think, that mastery over death is in his grasp now. Yeah. And Vader has the being leave. you climb down an elevator or like a ladder to get a closer look, and you get like a much closer view from the floor below you through more ventilation shafts.
Yeah.
So this cloak being, I don't know if you saw the effect, but it kind of like not
it
fully
like
disapparated, almost like from Harry Potter, but it kind of looked like that. Like he kind of like
it
went,
looked like it was getting sucked into a little mini wormhole or something.
Yeah,
like
it
a little.
looked
It was a
like-
little singularity or something.
Yeah,
like
it
was so
looked
cool.
like the disapparition effect from Harry Potter, right?
Yeah.
Like not like fully, but it kind of looked like that.
Yeah, something like that. Because that whole time I was like I was trying to like rationalize it, right? And I'm watching this character, I'm like, who I think might be Snoke, and now I'm like, okay, like what is this? Is this a real person that's here right now, or is it like a hologram and something like that? Clearly, it was not a hologram, unless they have like some other bizarre hologram technology that they've never introduced in all of Star Wars before.
Yeah.
And so I was like, my curiosity was like, I'm like, who is this guy?
Yeah.
I want to learn more.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I really want to know who that is.
Because what intrigued me too, right, is because Vader is technically supposed to have, like, his master is supposed to be Sidious, right?
Yeah.
So I was like, who is it that is, like, able to, like, hold Vader's ear and, like, get, like, tantalize him with, like, the prospect of reaching immortality?
Yeah.
Because, like, Vader has him, like, in other, like, lore or, like, parts of the Star Wars franchise, like, through, like, some video games, for example, has tried to, like, kill Sidious, right? To, like, replace him. So it's like, who is Vader willing to be subservient to other than Vader?
Yeah.
Like, it's
So you got
so
the feeling
interesting.
that he was like did you get the feeling that Vader was working for this guy or a servant? Because Vader kind of asks him to leave, and
I think he was definitely, like,
or an ally of some kind. Like,
yeah, it reminded me of, like, in Revenge of the Sith, right, where, like, Vader or Anakin Skywalker at that point hadn't pledged himself to Sidious, but he was, like, still kind of, like, sort of serving him and stuff like that, because he was his close friend, because he was
his
convinced
allegiance
Sidious
is, like,
was
really connected.
he was convinced Sidious was, like, looking out for his interests and stuff like that, and clearly this guy has, like, gone that same route. He's, like, found a different way to pique Vader's obsession with death, and, like, kind of, like, taunt him with that carrot, like, hey, I've like, there's a way to do this, man. You just gotta listen to what I have to say. And Vader's kind of like, listen out to what he's doing.
Well, it makes me wonder if Vader sought this person out, or if he's just that kind of figure that came into Vader's life, like, at the convenient time that he wants to do so. Like, so it's unclear whether or not he's a puppet or a puppeteer at this point.
Exactly.
So so I'm really looking forward. Like, it's never revealed in this episode who it is, but once he disappears, that's it. And then something really interesting happens, because Vader kind of kneels down and takes off the back of his helmet, which it kind of reminiscent of like that moment in Episode 5 when Admiral What's-His-Face kind of walks into Vader's meditation chamber, and you see Vader's, like, back of the bald, scarred head, sitting in the chair, and then his helmet kind of comes down and puts it on his head. But you get the reverse effect here. He takes it off, and weirdly enough, like, the helmet is two pieces, so there's a face mask and then there's the back, like, kind of samurai part. But he actually, you hear him speak in this moment, and he what does he say? He says, does he say?
Oh, I don't remember.
Padme or something? He says something like that, and it sounds like Anakin Skywalker.
Yeah,
it doesn't sound like Darth Vader.
Yeah, that was what was really cool about, like, that moment too, is that it definitely reinforced, because, we talked about the Star Destroyer, or the different class of Star Destroyer earlier. That's an earlier variant, but that moment kind of really, like, sets it in for you that this is a much younger Vader, and this, like, for sure takes place, like, well before Rogue One and stuff like that, and so it's, like, definitely, like, setting in and reinforcing the timeline.
It's a 20-something-year-old Darth Vader. 27, maybe 28.
Exactly.
And he reaches out to this glowing yellow rock, and you see Natalie Portman, like, Padme, show up in this rock, and it's kind of a still image at first that kind of fades into view, and then it starts to play, and it's like kind of miraged in the rock.
Mm-hmm.
And,
it was
and
like watching his old dreams or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. It was like watching his memory, and it's the moment where Padme tells Anakin that she's pregnant.
Yeah.
So like it's a big moment for him. Yeah. And once she kind of finishes her line, it pauses for a minute, and then it fades away.
Yeah.
And then the image disappears, and Vader just like loses it. Like, he puts his hand on the stone. He's like super confused that it's just like disappeared.
And, everything starts shaking, and then the grates or whatever, they close up on you, and you're like, okay, I'm glad I got out of that unscathed.
Glad I didn't get noticed. Yeah. So that was kind of cool. Like, I was so focused in on that footage because it's the same exact footage and dialogue from Revenge of the Sith. Like they literally just comped in that footage of Natalie Portman and So anyway, you like your droid kind of gives you the idea. It's like, hey, we got to get out of here. This place is like super creepy. So you make your way down to the lower caves. It looks like the Imperials are excavating something out down there. And there's like equipment and boxes everywhere. And your droid and you find this like a skiff. It's like a skiff is like a speeder of some kind, but kind of more like a floating platform sort of thing. Yeah,
it reminded me, again, Revenge of the Sith, like the Anakin Obi-Wan duel or whatever.
Oh,
like,
for
tons of those little floating platforms like all over the place.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. So it's like kind of like that. It's probably, I didn't take a good look, but it might have even been something like that was exactly the same, the model and everything. So
yeah, maybe.
So your droid tries to get the skiff started up so you can kind of float away. And if you look around, you're kind of in this gigantic catacomb almost. Like there's rock everywhere around you, and
it's a massive underground like cavern. Like you I was definitely like when you got into that area, I was kind of trying to figure out, I was like, is this like a quarry, or is this like, are there just these massive underground caverns in Mustafar? Because like, that guy like said he's a cavern clanman or I don't know, whatever, right? And so I'm kind of like, oh, like this is a big open space. Like, what is like under the ground of Mustafar? Because like obviously all we've ever seen of Mustafar is like a lot of barren, like volcanic, and then lava everywhere, right? Yeah. Like we have no like idea. Like I didn't even know that there was like Mustafarans at that point. Like I had totally like forgotten about like any ode of that. Here. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I was like, oh, cool. Like.
Yeah, it's really cool. And you get the feeling that you're underneath Vader's castle at this point.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah. So, like, you look above you, and, I mean, it's probably well over 200 feet above you that there's, like, rock surface as a ceiling almost.
Yeah.
And there's a little bit of light streaming through the odd hole in I guess, the ground level, I guess it is, up there.
The surface.
And then, and you're kind of on this, like, cliffside where you look down, and there's, like, nothing. It's just, like, a deep, dark cavern down there.
Black,
So you get onto the skiff, and then the stormtroopers like come bursting out of the doors behind you. So you're deflecting bullets and everything. The skiff gets moving, and you kind of work your way around, and you see this ancient-looking castle thing, which has got to be like thousands of years old at this point.
Yeah, the droid kind of gives you like some context or whatever, right? Like she's like, oh, this is definitely like predates the old. Did she say Old Republic? I think
it predates the Republic.
Yeah. Oh, the Republic. Yeah,
just the Republic. Yeah, so it's definitely over 1,000 years.
Yeah,
yeah, and you get the idea. It's like, okay, it's pre-Republic, so it's and at this point the Jedi have been the guardians of peace and justice in the galaxy. They've been ruling over. They've been dominating, I guess, the galaxy as peacekeepers for like 1,000 years because the Sith haven't been seen for 1,000 years, and that's what Yoda and Mace Windu say in the Phantom Menace. And even though this is quite a few years later, it's now between episode 3 and 4. It's a very small piece of time plus those 1,000 years. So you get the feeling that this castle is well over 1,000 years old.
And I mean, like even like when you look at it, right? Like there's literally like still. I mean, there's this beautiful like structure that you see, but then there's literally like rock that's like clearly like sedimented itself or whatever like around it. Like they've had to like peel like mine away like whatever rock and stuff like that because it's literally just like part of this cavern now.
Yeah, and it is a volcanic planet, and rock forms around. Like when a volcano explodes, that's what happens, right? Like
Yeah.
things get covered in volcanic ash and stuff, and lava like wraps around hard things and hardens and turns into rock.
Yeah.
So it looks like they're excavating a castle.
Yeah.
Almost a castle beneath Vader's castle. So it's like, it's really almost there's a little thing in the Vader comics that hint that Vader has a purpose for the place where he built his castle on.
Yeah, that was what was kind of cool, because Vader, you know, you never get the impression that he's much for like vanity or anything like that.
He always has a reason for stuff.
Exactly. So like you see this big menacing monolith of a castle or lair or whatever when you approach it, and then like now that you start to learn that there's a huge underground cavern and there's like a whole like complex of like ancient ruins and stuff like that, you're like, dang dude, like what is so interesting that Vader invested in building a whole monolith? Because I mean, like, you know, throughout the franchise and stuff like that, he just like goes to places and like cuts a swath through like everything, right? So like what's so important to him?
Oh yeah, and
he builds a monolith.
It's
there.
beyond just the like, I thought it was reason enough for him to build a lair on the place that he was essentially born.
Exactly. Yeah.
I thought that was a good enough reason, but now we're starting to figure out, it's like, whoa, there's more than just that reason alone for him to have his castle here. Like there's a lot of history in the goal that he's trying to accomplish here, like that originates on this planet. And I thought it was like really, really cool, the fact that not only was Darth Vader just essentially born out of fire on this planet, but he's seeking something on this planet.
Yeah, the next like, I guess he perceives the next phase of his like advancement or progression or whatever is in here as well. Yeah,
exactly. So you get close to this castle, and you get off the skiff, and an alien who looks very similar to your buddy who you just rescued from the prison, who went off and caused a distraction. He is kind of standing near this doorway holding a gun and everything or something.
Yeah, I literally right away drew my lightsaber. I was like, okay, like
he's gonna
let's
attack
get
you.
ready. And then
and weirdly enough, he doesn't really pay attention to you too much. He kind of like looks at you,
just
but
nonchalantly
lets you walk past.
Yeah, I was like, oh, clearly you're just gonna let some droid in person you've never met before walk through. I'm like, wow, levels of security.
Yeah, exactly. Oddly enough, I thought it was weird that he was even there, because the Imperials are excavating this place. And
I was like, bro, how are you alive? Like, did you not see the horde of stormtroopers behind me? Like they've clearly, they've got their equipment is all over this entrance. Like this isn't just some ancient like entrance you've just managed to magically find. Yeah, like they've like excavated it. Yeah, and so they've clearly had a presence here. And you're like, dude, where'd you come from? What hole in the wall?
I felt it was kind of strange that there was no Imperials down there either. That like the castle that they've just excavated, I thought it was strange that there's no stormtroopers around that area. Like even though you have to take a skiff, which looks like it was put there to get to that castle.
Literally,
it was weird to me. It's like, are they all on lunch break or something? Like there's nobody around here. So so this Mustafarian greets you at the door. He doesn't say anything. You walk past him down a few hallways, and this totem, or whatever you want to call it, starts to glow. Yeah. And your droid basically says, oh, we must be getting close and everything. And she points out on the walls, there's like engravings, almost like it's like I guess artwork of some kind, but they're etched into the walls. And she talks about Lady Korvac and says, oh, that must be her. And you look on the wall, and there's a beam of light shining on the section of the wall where you see what looks like some
mural.
woman.
Like
a mural like of some kind. Yeah, it's like it's some woman holding something,
holding the shiny object.
Yeah, like a glowing ball almost. Yeah. And I don't, like, you didn't do this, but I was curious to see who she was holding it out to. And the game is very dark, so it's kind of hard to see. But I actually took out my lightsaber and used it as a torch to light up the wall. So I held it towards the wall, and there was people that was just there. I don't know who they were, but it almost looked like a family of four. There was like two kids or something, or a smaller one and a taller one, and so it was just, I guess she was holding it out to the people, I guess, or her clan or something like that.
I mean, when I saw that mural or whatever, I was like way more cutthroat. I was like, okay, we got the lady who I'm allegedly related to and the unidentified shiny object. We got a unidentified shiny object and lady. Good to know. We're going to be saving the galaxy, folks. Let's do it.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just around the corner from there that you get to this like vast, large room with another pedestal kind of not far away, and this cloaked woman who is a Mustafarian standing near the pedestal. So your droid kind of freaks out a bit. She's like, okay, you go first, Captain.
Yeah, exactly.
And you walk up to this
Yeah.
woman, and she kind of turns, greets you, and she's the priestess that you've been looking for, according to this, this prisoner that you helped escape. Your droid gives her the totem that he gave to your droid, and I don't really know why we even were given that, because it didn't really do much except light up when we entered the castle in the first place.
Yeah.
But she kind of knows it's you. And she says, we don't have much time. I must help you. So she taps you on the forehead, and her hand kind of lights up when she does. Yeah. And you know what this reminded me? Did you watch Clone Wars?
The
Clone Wars
Star Wars
show,
episode 2?
No, like
the show? No,
Attack.
I never watched this show.
So in the Clone Wars, there's an arc that people refer to it as the Mortis trilogy. There's 3 episodes that take place on a planet called Mortis.
Yeah,
it's more like a spacecraft diamond-shaped thing than a planet, but it's a planet-sized environment, and it's super, super abstract. Like, I love those 3 episodes. But there's a figure there. His name's the Father, and at one point in the series, he has to tap Anakin Skywalker on the forehead to erase some memories.
Oh.
Because Anakin sees something that he shouldn't have seen, and he essentially gets shown the future. And to fix the future, the Father has to erase those memories. So he actually does very similarly what the priestess does to you, and taps you on the forehead with this glowing hand or glowing finger, whatever. That's glowing energy. I thought it was really cool, because that emulates what the Father does to Anakin when he's trying to take away memories. And in this experience, the priestess is giving you memories, and what she gives you is the history of Mustafar. So in a 2-dimensional experience, you kind of see this weird artistic painting like this come to life around you. Yeah, and you witness the history of Mustafar, in which it talks about this lady Corvax and something called the Bright Star. I believe it was. Was it called the Bright Star?
Yeah. Again, I was just like unidentified shiny object. Got it.
Yeah. So let me just look it up here, because they have a pretty good Wikipedia page on the Bright Star.
Oh, right on.
And sorry, I should have had this prepared, but I think I lost it.
No worries. Yeah, I mean, that whole sequence though was pretty cool, right? Like, I liked the art that they did, and I enjoyed it too, because again, like, I didn't I like that it wasn't the same as all the other Star Wars games I've played, that it was its own kind of experience, like kind of reminiscent of like the Telltale games and stuff like that. Yeah. And so they're giving you like that lore and backstory, which is like, we just eat that up as
totally as fans. We just eat that up. Exactly. Okay, so the Bright Star was the most sacred artifact of the Mustafarians. Long before the rise of the Galactic Empire, it was stolen by Lady Corvax. So the Bright Star belonged to the people of Mustafar. Yeah. And it's also revealed in the memory that you get that Mustafar was not always a lava planet. It was once green and full of life.
Did they say she was like the keeper of it or something like that at some point?
Lady Corvax stole it.
Yeah.
She stole it from the people of Mustafar, who I think it was some sort of prized artifact of some kind. I have no idea what it is, but she stole it because she thought it could restore her dead husband back to life.
Yeah.
And instead, the Bright Star released powerful energies that turned the green and bountiful Mustafar into a hellish wasteland.
Yeah, so spoiler alert, it didn't.
Yeah.
It did not work.
So thereafter, Corvax kept the artifact hidden in her sanctum. At some point during the Imperial era, Darth Vader is now trying to retrieve the Bright Star. And that's kind of where you come in. Is that, it's something that he's trying to get a hold of, and he has now. You have unlocked some sort of key, and he's, you get the idea that he's now like one step closer to achieving his goal of like obtaining this Bright Star. Yeah. And the priestess basically says that you must help Darth Vader retrieve the Bright Star. because I guess her masterful plan to get it back into the hands of Mustafarian people is to follow you on this mission and just basically like double cross Vader and steal it back.
Yeah, that's what that part was
super
hilarious
weird,
to me, because it just kind of shows, like, I guess at that point, like, how early on you are in kind of Darth Vader's overall legacy.
Yeah.
Because the fact that this lady or whatever, I mean, forget the fact that Darth Vader's got a massive army or whatever at his disposal, right?
Yeah.
Like, she totally, like, we obviously know Darth Vader is this, like, penultimate, like, awesome, menacing power. And she's like, oh yeah, we'll just ambush him and, like, take it back. It's a great idea. Trust me. Here. Good, like, go have a good time.
You got this.
Yeah, you got this. And I'm just like, no, stop, wait, you don't realize how bad an idea this is. It's not going to work. But again, like, I guess at that point, like, it's just emulating how early on it is in, like, his legacy, because he hasn't even, like, cemented that awesome power yet. Like, he's not figured across the entire galaxy yet. Like, he hasn't quite gotten there.
No, and now you've been sucked into this goal of his, and now you're being played by both Vader and this priestess. Now that you, of course, like, now you have to help out.
Like,
so it's at some point you're like, hey, I just want to pull a Han Solo and be like, this is none of my business. Like,
yeah, exactly.
I want to get on with my life and everything. But so you get the memory, and one thing I noticed when I was experiencing the memory of this. I guess Mustafar, like the history of Mustafar, is the dead husband of Lady Corvax. Did you notice that he had this double kind of bladed sword thing? It's like a sword that has two blades coming out the top of it.
Oh no, I didn't. I looked at him like part of the time or whatever, but I was also like, I think during that sequence I was like trying to figure out who this like invader was or whatever to their planet. Yeah. So I wasn't even looking at him half the time.
Right. Well, this dead husband of Lady Corvax held this sword.
Yeah.
And you haven't played it, but earlier this year I went and did the hyper reality experience down in Disneyland, which is put on by The Void, and The Void makes a VR experience called Secrets of the Empire. And cool. Secrets of the Empire takes place kind of around the same time as when Vader Immortal Episode 1 takes place.
Yeah.
And you play as undercover rebels or something, and you get this holographic disguise matrix that makes you look like a stormtrooper, and you have to invade Vader's castle for some reason. I'm fogging on the reason why. But
I mean, it's Vader. Point, you don't need an excuse to try to like
break into his house.
Day. Yeah.
Yeah. So at some point, though, you see this box get opened, and there's this blue glowing sword, and it looks kind of like it's got two kind of blades coming out the top of the end or whatever. Okay, and you're like, whoa, what the heck is that? Like, it looks like almost like a lightsaber.
Oh, almost. That's cool.
And, yeah. But what I thought was really interesting is that sword is depicted as the sword of this dead husband for Lady Corvax in this memory of Mustafar. Yeah. So now you're like, oh wow, like even in Secrets of the Empire in that game, Vader is still kind of toying with this whole obsession of like trying to get this mastery over death, and he's reaching at every thread he's got. So he's collecting artifacts, he's doing his research and doing his excavating and whatever. Mm-hmm. And I guess he uncovers this sword at some point and gets possession of it because it shows up in that game. So it's a cool little Easter egg that they crossed over.
That's really cool. Yeah.
Yeah. And anyway, so she leaves, and the stormtroopers and Darth Vader like burst into the room conveniently when the priestess leaves the room, and you're still standing there going, okay, what do I do now?
Exactly.
And Vader has you take the configuration box that you opened earlier and shove it into this pedestal where there's like a convenient shaped keyhole for the box.
Yeah.
And then the whole room kind of comes to life, and the floor starts to almost drop down into something, and it's like a massive elevator, and then these massive big droids kind of pop out of the walls and everything and start attacking all the stormtroopers and Vader, and then Vader's like, protect the prisoner because he needs you. And the stormtroopers get ripped apart, but you take the lightsaber naturally off of your waist to defend yourself, and you have to fight these big droids now. And it's kind of cool because like when I was fighting these droids, I just wanted to like watch Vader like,
Exactly.
take out these droids. But yeah, like did you like?
Yeah, I mean, it was, I think after a certain point, like, it was just kind of, like, easy mode, because, like, you, like, I realized how, like, aggressive I could be, kind of, and so, like, anytime, like, you know, they weren't, like, bringing down a strike on me, I would, like, go for it and just, like, hack away at them, right?
Yeah.
And so I would try to, like, watch Vader, but then more would appear and stuff like that, and so it's just kind of like, huh. All right, here's another one. Whew, okay,
yeah,
here's
have to
another.
take down about like 4 or 5 of them, right?
So, a whole bunch of them. I feel like I took down more than that.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know, but
the whole time it's like, okay, it's cool that I'm fighting these droids right now, but I kind of just want to see Vader like take them all
exactly.
out right
I was
person,
like, every time I was done killing them, I was kind of like, okay, can I like? I'm trying to watch for more, but then I'm like, I want to watch Vader like murder these things.
yeah, which eventually at the end of the thing, he force grabs your lightsaber out of your hand and takes and hacks these droids apart with your green lightsaber and his red lightsaber. And does he give it back? I forget.
No, he didn't.
He didn't give it back. Okay, but at the very end, all the lights kind of shut off, and then he activates his red one to light the environment, and he walks right up to you with his blade like shining in your face.
Yeah.
And kind of, he has a few last words saying that you basically handled yourself well, and he insinuates that he's going to teach you the ways of the Force.
Yeah.
And then he walks away, and the game ends, and you see the end credits and everything.
Yeah.
And from what we know, episode 2 is supposed to focus on Force powers. And
that's
yeah,
really
so that's
cool.
going to be cool. So the first episode was really based on lightsaber combat, and then the second episode is going to be based on Force powers. And there's another mode for the first episode where you can just play with the training droids and have like endless waves of more difficult challenges. Yeah. So that's kind of cool. You can unlock new lightsaber color blades and different like the legacy hilts, like Anakin's hilt or Vader's or whatever. Like you can unlock different hilts in the game. So that's kind of cool.
Yeah, I kind of like that because it's not like, because I remember like probably one of my favorite like more recent-ish Star Wars games is Star Wars like Force Unleashed. But and that game was like, both those games were really fun and cool or whatever, but it throws you into the Force aspect of it like right away. Like, not that it was hard or anything like that, but it's just kind of almost like unbelievable like how powerful you are in the Force and stuff like that. And like how quickly you get to that point. Whereas like with this, it's definitely cementing in that like, yeah, okay, you might have just figured out how to pick up a lightsaber and like, you know, deflect a few shots or like sword attacks and stuff like that, but you're still like not even close to the level of like power that Vader is, right? Whereas in like Force Awakens, like it's the opposite. It like
because you
pushes
at some point
boundary.
in the Force Awakens, you kind of rip Vader to shreds.
Exactly,
point, right?
And so it's like, which is kind of like, really, like, okay, but in this, it's kind of like, okay, yeah, I believe that like Vader's substantially more powerful than me.
Which is good because this entire game is canon.
Yeah.
So this entire VR experience is completely built into canon.
Exactly.
As is Secrets of the Empire as well. So very very cool that you get to not only be a part of like Star Wars canon in VR, but you know, you get this really realistic feeling that you know, you don't know anything about the Force and you've never held a lightsaber, and now you're being forced into this like situation of having to learn and use these tools. So
sure,
super cool. But there was some news from like D23 at the Disney convention this year by Ben Snow. I guess he's the guy in charge of the project.
Yeah, it said in the credits he was like the director or producer or something like that.
Exactly. Yeah. So he revealed an image of Darth Vader lifting rocks, like debris almost. And it's like a still from the second episode.
Yeah.
And he had this to say about it. He says, "The first image is really part of the training. The way we thought about this was we wanted to give you the Vader equivalent of Yoda teaching Luke about the Force in Empire Strikes Back. So we wanted to be slightly darker and more twisted. He talks about the power of the dark side as well as the things you can do with the Force. So in this moment that the concept art reveals, you see him starting to manipulate objects, and he's starting to show you how you can use the Force to create something. But then, of course, Vader takes it in his own direction, Snow said. It's not clear yet how the Force mechanics will work from a VR gameplay standpoint, but Snow said that the team is focused on honing in on the feel. He says that is something we're really working hard on. Snow says to make it feel as good as we can. Our goal is to make the Force in Episode 2 as satisfying as the lightsaber felt in Episode 1. So,
awesome.
Yeah. So I thought that was kind of cool.
That is pretty cool.
Yeah.
I like that. I'm excited.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good. So anyway, two things like about this experience though, because we saw Vader's castle in Rogue One. That was like our first kind of glimpse into this place.
Yeah.
What do you think the chances are that we'll see more parts of the castle from Rogue One in Vader Immortal? And how do you feel about that? Like if you were
I'm excited because when you're teased that in Rogue One, like that's like a super cool sequence. Like I mean, like obviously, like you know, in that movie, like that's the
one of the best parts of the movie.
Yeah, exactly. And so you know, it's awesome. You get to meet Vader and stuff like that. But then at the same time, you know, you're shown this like beautiful like castle in this like fiery wasteland. But then we have no like perception or context of like why that's even there, or like what the suddenly Vader like just got really like vain and felt like he needed to build a big arse castle on this where he was, like you were saying, where he was first born or whatever, but now we have the chance to learn like that there's so much more to that, and I think for sure we'll have to see more of that, his castle probably at some point. I mean, maybe not so much from the outside, but for sure from the inside, because remember our ship is still parked way up there in that hangar. Like they haven't destroyed it as far as we know. So
yeah, exactly. So the back to tank scene in Rogue One, when he's like talking to that hooded figure, it's almost like a butler of his or whatever. Do you think it would be cool for them to have that back to tank room in the game at some point, just to like? I
think so. Yeah. I mean, like, why not, right? Like, yeah, exactly. It's just a cool, like, because we, you know, like they haven't. I don't think they've really like introduced us anywhere inside the castle that's like familiar to us. Yeah. Everything's been new. Like I don't even remember really like the hangar, because they didn't really like take really you inside like they just kind of like glancingly maybe show you from the outside. So I think like making it like just adding in those little tidbits of like nostalgia or like throwbacks to the like the later film and stuff like that, or because I guess, you know, Rogue One takes place later on, but it'd still be cool to see that stuff. Yeah Like the only reason why I ask is like some people they don't like to have the repeat content, but I mean personally I love like when they add connective tissue like from one thing to another. I mean they haven't even like so far in this game they hadn't. I mean we've been talking about like all these like throwbacks we've been experiencing and stuff like that throughout this, like different like scenes or sequences that were like, oh, this reminds me of like, you know, Episode 4 or Revenge of the Sith and stuff like that, and it's not even the exact same thing, but we're still like so pumped about it. And so to be able to like experience that same thing, since we already are in that same place, like I think I see no reason why not. Like I'd like that. That'd be fun. That'd be so cool, because then because again, like you're not like, we wouldn't be watching someone else experience it. We would be able to experience it and like look around for ourselves and stuff like that, and like, you know, take our own interest in the environment or whatever. So that would be so cool. Well, thank you so much again, Reid, for joining us on the show and talking all about Star Wars Vader Immortal. If you don't own the game, I highly recommend getting it if you have access to a VR headset. It's a fantastic experience. You won't regret it. That's all about the time we have for today now, so I'm going to be signing off here. Our Twitter handle is SW Escape Podcast, and we're available on just about every platform that you could find a podcast on. So whether you're on Apple Podcasts all the way up to Google Podcasts, Stitcher, Deezer, iHeartRadio, be sure to check us out on any platform. If there is not a platform that you can find us on, please email us
at theescapepod@outlook.com. That's our email address. So shoot us an email there. Any questions or topics that you might want us to cover on the show, feel free to do so. So thanks again for tuning in. You're listening to Star Wars Escape Pod. My name is Josh, and may the Force be with you.